I remember the first time I felt the forest breathe around me. The night was thick with fog, settling low over the pine needles, muffling the crunch of my boots. Pale light from the moon cut through the mist in shards, barely illuminating the path ahead. Somewhere off to my left, a low rustle whispered through the underbrush. I paused, my breath curling in the cold, damp air, and thought I heard faint footsteps, quick, deliberate, matching my pace, but never quite behind me. The deeper I walked, the quieter it became, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Static hummed through my ears, like the memory of a voice I couldn't place. Shadows moved shapeless, just beyond vision, and I swore I saw a figure slip between the trees, a silhouette too human to be an animal, too wrong to be anyone I knew. The hair on my neck rose with the faint smell of wet earth, and something older, something wild. Every instinct told me to stop, to turn back, but curiosity kept my feet moving, leading me deeper into the cold heart of the forest. That's when I saw it, a pair of eyes, reflecting a pale light that wasn't mine. I froze, and in that silence, I realized the stories were true. They had been watching all along. Evening settles over the forest in a slow, pale hush. Late autumn, cold enough that my breath hangs like faint smoke in front of me. I stand at the edge of the trail, watching fog gather between the tall pines. It moves in thin ribbons, twisting, curling, almost like it's breathing. A soft hum drifts through the branches. Not wind, just a low, steady vibration, brushing the back of my neck. The trees look darker than usual, long shadows stretching between them. Their trunks rise so straight and silent that the whole forest feels taller than it should, older than it should. I take one step forward. The earth is damp beneath my shoes, and the wet leaves cling to my ankles as if they don't want to let me in. The moment I cross under the pines, the temperature drops. A thin chill slides along my arms. The air smells like moss and frozen dirt, and the fog wraps around my legs, brushing them like soft fingers. Somewhere between the trunks, a whisper breaks the quiet. At first, I think it's just the forest settling for the night, a branch shifting, bark cooling. But then it comes again, faint, stretched thin through the trees. My name, not loud, not sharp, just a soft exhale, shaped exactly like my name, as if someone is standing right behind me, leaning close, speaking into the fog. I freeze. The whisper drifts again, a little clearer, like breath gliding across my ear. My name, drawn out, slow, almost gentle. I look over my shoulder, but there's nothing. Only the fading daylight caught in the fog. Only the smell of pine sap and wet earth. I tell myself it was just the forest playing tricks, just the echo of my own breath. But then the whisper repeats, coming from deeper inside, and my feet move on their own. I step between the trunks, one slow step after another. The whisper trails ahead of me, light as static, pulling me forward. Every few seconds it fades, then returns, a little farther in, like it's leading me somewhere. The forest feels alive around me. Branches sway, though the air stays still. The needles tremble in soft patterns, as if answering to something I cannot see. I run my fingers along a nearby trunk. It feels warm, warm like skin. I pull my hand back quickly, wiping it on my sleeve. The path narrows until it's nothing but packed dirt. My heartbeat settles into the quiet, thudding steady in my chest. The fog rises higher, brushing my waist, then my ribs. It carries a faint cold sweetness, almost metallic, like frozen iron. I follow the whisper to a small clearing I've never seen before. The space opens suddenly. No branches overhead, just a circle of pale sky, fading into night. And there, in the center, are footprints, frozen prints stamped deep into the dirt, clear edges, sharp outlines, as if someone walked here only seconds ago. But the prints lead nowhere. They start in the middle of the clearing, stop abruptly. No entry trail, no exit, just a pattern of steps that shouldn't exist. The fog pools inside each print, shimmering faintly. I crouch down and hover my hand above one of them. Cold presses upward, brushing my palm like icy breath. The whisper comes again, this time closer. Too close. My name slips around me in a thin, trembling murmur. right beside my ear, right at the edge of my skin. I flinch and straighten. My breath catches in my throat. Silence falls. Not a natural silence. Not the soft quiet of evening settling. The silence feels thick, weighted, as if the whole forest is holding its breath. I look around the clearing. The pines stand perfectly still. Their branches no longer sway. Not one needle moves. The hum in the air stops. The fog holds still. Everything pauses. I listen for the whisper, waiting for it to drift through again, but there's nothing. No echo of my name. No faint pull through the trees. Only the cold, only the thick silence pressing against my ears. I step back from the footprints. The ground feels softer, almost unsteady beneath my feet, like the earth itself is shifting under the fog. A shiver crawls up my spine. Something in the clearing feels unfinished, like I've stepped into the middle of a breath that hasn't been exhaled yet. I take one more slow glance at the frozen prints. They glisten faintly in the dim light before the fog folds over them, swallowing their edges. I turn toward the path. The pines seem closer now, their dark trunks forming a tight wall. Still I walk. One step, another, my breath warming the cold air, rising in quick, shaky trails. Behind me, the clearing fades from view. The hum does not return. No whisper follows. Only the quiet, deep unmoving, guiding me back to the trees. Morning settles over the forest in a pale, bluish hush, cold enough that the damp air clings to my clothes, heavy and still. Late autumn, again edging toward winter. Fog hangs low across the trail, thick, dense enough that the world feels reduced to a few slow steps in front of me. The pines fade into white shapes, their outlines soft like charcoal rubbed thin. Each breath I take leaves a faint shimmer in the air, moist, cold, almost metallic on my tongue. I move carefully, brushing aside wet branches. Droplets slide down my sleeves, chilling my hands. Leaves stick to the mud under my boots, giving off the smell of old rain and fading pine. The forest feels quiet in a new way, not empty, just watching. As the fog shifts, something darker rises on the small hill to my right. A shape, still, tall, then 2 points of pale light open within it. Eyes, not bright, not animal-like in any way I know. Just a soft glow, steady and unblinking. They float in the mist like tiny lanterns, watching to the veil of fog. My chest tightens. A slow chill settles under my skin. I stand there, barely breathing. The eyes do not move. They simply watch, calm and patient, as if they've been waiting for me. I blink, just once, and the eyes shift, lower, closer, like they slip down the hill without taking a single step. I turn my head quickly, but the shape vanishes into the fog. Only the stillness remains, thick as wet cotton around me. I try to shake it off. Tell myself it was light, bending in the mist, nothing more. But a soft, rustling rises behind me. A small crack in the silence. I swallow the tightness in my throat and move forward again, slow, cautious steps along the trail. Every few feet, the fog stirs. Not from wind, just from something shifting inside it. And then the eyes return, farther ahead this time, hovering above the slope, dim but steady. They tilt slightly, like a curious head bowing. Each step I take toward them, they drift backward, deeper into the thick white haze. But when I turn away, they seem closer. I keep moving, heart tapping like tiny knocks against my ribs. Breath shallow, cold along the edges. A faint cry echoes somewhere on my left, high-pitched, short, like a small animal calling out, then being cut off too soon. Another cry answers from far behind me, then another, softer, like an echo swallowed by fog. They punctuate the silence in uneven bursts, each one tightening the air around me. The fog thickens until I can barely see my own hands. Moisture gathers in my eyelashes, blurring the world even more. The forest smells like wet ash and rotting leaves. I step carefully over roots I can't clearly see. My boots slide on the slick ground, sending a tremor up my leg. A low hum vibrates somewhere beneath the trail, so faint I feel it more than hear it. The eyes flicker again, a quick pulse of pale light disappearing behind a large fallen trunk. I follow, though every part of me tenses. I don't know why. Curiosity feels heavier than fear, settling deep in my stomach. The trail narrows into a corridor of mist, branches leaning close, dripping cold water onto my shoulders. My breath clings to the air, drifting slow between the trees. Then the ground shifts beneath me. My foot catches on something buried in the mud. I stumble forward, catching myself against a damp log. The smell hits first. Old charcoal, cold smoke, faint grease. When I lift my head, I see it. An abandoned campsite. Tents collapsed into wet heaps. Blankets half buried in mud. A metal mug on its side, filled with dirty water. In the center, a fire pit sits cold and gray. Ash spread thin, almost dust-like, not even a hint of warmth rising from it. Just the sharp scent of something long dead. I crouch beside the pit, letting the fog settle around me. My fingers brush the ash. Dry, soft. It coats my skin like fine powder. No footprints around it. No signs of someone leaving recently. Just emptiness, as if whoever was here simply dissolved into the mist. The animal cries stop, every single one. The forest falls into a thick, unbroken silence. A silence that sinks into my ears and presses against my breath until I feel alone in a way I've never felt before. I look up at the hill beyond the campsite. The fog shifts in a slow wave. For a moment, just a moment, the eyes appear again. Still, watching. Soft light trembling at the edges. Then the fog folds over them, hiding them completely. I stay kneeling beside the cold ash, hands pale and shaking, letting the silence settle deep into my chest as the morning fog thickens around me. Late afternoon settles cold across the forest. A thin chill threads through the branches, brushing my skin like damp cloth. The last bit of pale light leaks between the pines, stretching long shadows over the ground. I move slowly through thick brush. Leaves scrape my jacket. Wet vines cling to my boots. The air feels heavy, nearly still, yet every few steps something rustles deeper inside the trees. The smell shifts, earthy, old, mixed with a faint metallic dryness, like something abandoned for too long. That's when I see it, half hidden behind brambles and crooked trunks. A cabin, small, warped, barely standing. The wood is gray, stripped by weather, like bones left out in the cold. The roof dips in the middle, heavy with moss. Fog curls around the base, slipping through gaps in the boards. My breath slows. Something about the cabin feels hollow, like the forest swallowed it years ago and only now spit it back out. I step closer. Branches tug at my sleeves, pulling as if they want me to stop. The cabin's single window reflects nothing, just a deep, unmoving shadow. Then the door moves. A soft creak rises into the air and the door swings open, inch by inch, even though no wind touches it. The hinges groan quietly, long and strained, like something waking from a long sleep. Cold air spills out from the darkness inside. It wraps around my ankles, thin and icy, lifting goosebumps across my arms. I stand at the threshold. The interior is dim, only slivers of pale light slipping through the broken boards. Shadows hang thick against the walls, heavy like curtains. My breath feels tight in my chest as I step inside. The smell changes again, dust, mold, something sour beneath it, like old paper left in water. My throat prickles. The floor creaks beneath each step. Every board feels hollow, as if nothing solid sits beneath the structure at all. I let my eyes adjust to the dim. Shapes rise out of the dark. A table missing a leg. A bed frame bowed in the middle, and a rocking chair in the far corner. It moves, slowly, gently, rocking forward, then back, though no one sits in it. I watch the motion, my breath caught halfway. It doesn't speed up or slow down, just keeps a steady, soft rhythm, like a quiet heartbeat in the room. My hand brushes the wall beside me as I move forward, though it feels rough, splintered, but there's something carved into it. Scratches, dozens of them, thin, deep lines etched over and over, stacked in strange angles. At first, they look random, just marks from an animal or someone desperate. But from a few steps back, they form shapes, symbols, patterns repeating across the walls, as if someone worked on them for years. I trace one gently with my fingertip. The groove is cold, Too cold for what left in an abandoned place. A faint hum vibrates through the cabin. Low, steady, almost impossible place. It feels like it's coming from the walls themselves. I move deeper inside. Fog drifts slowly through the doorway, settling around my feet. My breath floats in small, shaky trails. The rocking chair keeps moving. Forward, back, forward, like something invisible still rests there. I turn toward the window. The glass is cracked in a spiderweb pattern, edges sharp and dusty. The outside world looks warped through it. Fog twisting, trees bending slightly in the blur. Then something passes by. A pale shape. Quick, smooth, almost drifting. I stop breathing. The shape pauses at the edge of the window frame. Its outline vague, barely there. Just a soft white blur against the darker fog beyond. But it lingers, still, watching, or listening. My heartbeat pulses loud in my ears. My breath stays locked in my throat, frozen and thin. The shape shifts slightly, like it leans closer to the glass. The fog outside seems to cling to it, curling over its edges like glowing smoke. For a second, I think it might press against a window, enter the cabin, step into the shadows with me. But instead, the shape pulls back, dissolving into the mist, fading until nothing remains but the trembling fog. The rocking chair slows. The hum quiets. The cabin sinks into a deep, heavy silence. A silence that feels layered, thick enough to touch. I step back toward the door, cold biting at my fingers, shadows shifting lightly along the walls. Outside, the pale light has dimmed even more. Fog gathers at the doorway, waiting like a still curtain. I take one last look at the symbols, at the chair now resting motionless, at the place where the pale shape paused. Then I step into the brush, letting the forest swallow the cabin behind me as silence follows me out into the fading light. Night settles over the forest like a thick blanket, deep, heavy, almost too dark for the season. The last thread of pale light fades behind the pines, leaving only the cold stretch of shadows between the trees. The air grows still, too still, as if every branch, every leaf, every creature is holding its breath. I grip my flashlight. Its beam cuts a narrow path through the dark, but the world beyond that thin circle stays pitch black. The fog is thin since afternoon, yet the night feels denser than any mist. My breath drifts in front of me, slow and shaky, mixing with a faint smell of damp bark and cold dirt. The silence is thick enough to press against my ears. Then something shifts, just at the edge of the light. Not a shape, more like movement in the dark. A small flicker, a shadow passing behind a tree. I stop walking, raise the beam a little higher. The light trembles slightly in my hand. Nothing moves. The forest stands still, waiting. I take one careful step forward. Leaves brush my boots. Wet soil softens each footfall. Then a rustle, quick, sharp, leaves crunching somewhere deeper in the dark. I turn the flashlight toward the sound. The beam slices through tree trunks, catching tiny droplets on the needles, but the source of the rustling stays hidden. Another step, another soft crunch, then nothing. The silence snaps shut around me again. A strange pressure settles on the back of my neck, a crawling awareness that something is out there, watching, following. I exhale slowly, warm breath rising like faint smoke. The cold seeps into my sleeves, sliding down my arms. I listen. At first there's nothing, just a quiet, thick and unmoving. Then a hum rises, low, guttural, deep enough to vibrate in my ribs. It threads through the trees in uneven waves, shaking the stillness in soft pulses. My stomach knots. The flashlight beam trembles again, catching fragments of bark and fog in its glow. The hum moves, drifting left, then circling right, as if something is pacing slowly around me, keeping just out of sight. I turn in a slow circle. The beam cuts across the forest floor, lighting roots, stones, fallen branches, but never anything living. The hum lowers to a rumble. Cold air slides along the back of my neck, raising the hairs there one by one. I take a step backward. My heel presses into wet soil. The smell of earth fills my nose, sharp and fresh. The presence thickens. I feel in the air, dense as static, close enough that my breath shortens. It circles again, Soft footsteps brushing the leaves. Not loud, more like pressure shifting across the ground. When I turn toward it, the footsteps stop. Every time. Left. Stop. Right. Stop. Behind me. Stop. It's always there, just behind the beam, just out of reach. The hum grows deeper, almost like a low growl buried in the trees. I can feel it more than I can hear it, pushing through the dark and slow, steady waves. I angle the flashlight higher. Its pale beam scatters across thin branches, catching small patches of mist drifting between the trunks. My breath comes in short bursts now, cold on my lips, shaky in my chest. The presence circles tighter. The air grows heavier, colder, thick enough that each inhale feels thin, like breathing through cloth. Leaves crunch again, closer, so close I feel the vibration through the ground. I freeze. The hum rises, a deep, trembling note, and the darkness presses inward like a closing hand. My heartbeat thuds hard against my ribs. For a moment, everything stops. No wind, no movement, just the forest holding itself perfectly still. I lift the flashlight slowly. The beam spreads into the trees, its pale glow soft along the ground. Nothing steps forward. Nothing emerges. Only the shadows stare back at me. The hum fades to a thin echo, then dissolves completely. The presence that pressed so close drifts away like receding breath. The silence returns, deep, unmoving, settling into the spaces between the trees. I lower the flashlight, exhaling the breath I've been holding onto for too long, and let the night wrap around me as I stand alone in the dark woods, listening to nothing at all. Late morning settles pale and cold across the forest. A thin gray light filters through the branches, soft and dull, like it's struggling to reach the ground. I follow a trail I know well, or I thought I did, packed dirt under thin layers of fallen needles, the smell of pine shifting gently with each step, the quiet rustle of the forest moving in slow breaths. My boots crunch lightly over leaves still damp from yesterday's frost. The air tastes clean, cool, almost sweet. For a moment, the world feels familiar, but the trail ahead begins to blur. The packed dirt softens into darker patches, edges fading beneath creeping moss. The roots of nearby trees rise higher, thick coils twisting across the path like old veins. I blink, thinking it's the light, or the fog, or maybe I'm just tired. But when I take another step, the trail is gone. It doesn't bend, doesn't split, doesn't fade around a corner. It simply vanishes into a web of moss-covered roots, so thick and tangled, they almost look alive. Green, dark, dripping with cold moisture, a thin chill crawls across my shoulders. It sinks into the collar of my jacket, down my spine, settling there like a warning that I kneel, brushing my fingers over the roots. They feel soft, wet, almost warm in places, like they're breathing beneath the surface. The air grows heavier, thicker. I inhale, and it feels like trying to breathe through syrup, dense and cold, coating the back of my throat, then my heartbeat slows, then speeds again, out of rhythm as the silence deepens around me. That I stand and turn slightly, trying to find the trail behind me. But even that looks different now. The trees seem closer. Their trunks lean inward, casting long shadows that stretch and twist across the ground. A crack echoes above me. Branches snapping, not gentle, not natural. A sharp, sudden break. Yet there's no wind, not even a breeze brushing the leaves that I stare upward. But the canopy is dark, a messy tangle of limbs shifting in slow, unnatural patterns. Another snap. Closer. Then another, farther away. Like something moving from treetop to treetop, circling. My breath shortens. I take a step back, and the cold thickens around my ankles, wrapping them like icy vines. Shadows begin to shift along the forest floor. At first, they move with the branches above, long streaks of darkness, sliding quietly across the moss. But then they twist, against the direction of the light, against the pattern of the trees, stretching, folding, forming shapes that rise and fall like figures walking, turning their heads, lifting their arms, shapes that mimic human motion. One shadow tilts sideways, its edges sharpening as if it's trying to stand upright. Another bends forward, reaching toward the ground with long, thin stretches of darkness. My skin prickles. Every sound inside me seems to get louder. My pulse, my breathing, the faint tremble of my fingers. I step back again. The shadows follow. Not directly, just enough to mimic the movement, as though they're studying me, mirroring me. A quiet hum leaks through the trees. Low, barely there, yet steady enough to vibrate the roots beneath my boots. The air smells different now, wet bark, old soil, a thin metallic tint like rust or cold stone. I look to my left, a small opening between branches, the start of a path maybe. But the trees seem wrong, leaning at odd angles, shadows pooling under them like thick ink. I look to my right, another potential trail, but it bends too sharply, as though forced into a shape that shouldn't exist. My throat tightens. I turn slowly, trying to retrace my steps, try and find something familiar, anything. But the forest behind me isn't the same forest I walked into. The trees look rearranged. The ground slopes differently. The shadows flicker where they shouldn't. The trail I followed, the trail I trusted, is no longer there. Not even a hint of it beneath the moss and roots. A quiet rustling rises behind me. Soft footsteps, light, deliberate. I close my eyes for a moment. The cold air presses against my face. The thick silence settles deep inside my ears. When I open them again, the forest feels tighter, closer, watching. I take one slow step forward, not sure which direction I'm choosing, not sure if direction even exists here anymore. The shadows shift with me. Branches creak overhead. The cold thickens like fog around my chest. And I realize with a slow, sinking dread that I may not be walking the same path I entered. And I'm no longer sure there's a path at all. The pines stand still tonight. Cold air moves around me, but the branches don't sway, not even a whisper of wind. I press my hand against my coat, trying to hold in the heat. Late autumn always feels sharper out here, like the darkest teeth. The ground looks wet, covered in patches of pale moss. My breath curls upward in faint curls of fog. Everything feels quiet, too quiet. Then a hum rises beneath my boots. Soft, steady, vibrating to the forest floor like something breathing under the dirt. I hold still, waiting for it to fade, but it doesn't. It grows just a little, like it knows I'm listening. The air thickens around me, heavy and warm, even though the night is freezing. I kneel, pressing my fingers into the soil. The hum travels into my arm, up my wrist, into my ribs. It feels alive. A faint pale light seeps through the trees, just enough to make shadows stretch long across the ground. Each shadow flickers, bending in ways my mind tries not to follow. I swallow hard. The hum tugs at me, gently, slowly, pulling me toward a dip in the earth I hadn't noticed before. A shallow pit, round edges, freshly disturbed soil. I step closer, soft footsteps sinking into the loose dirt. The smell hits me first. Cold mud mixed with something dry like old paper, or dust from a forgotten attic. The hum gets louder as I lean over the edge. Bones, small ones, large ones, all tangled together beneath a thin layer of moss. No markings, no cuts, just bare, pale shapes half eaten by time. I feel my breath catch. The ground seems to pulse beneath me, almost like a heartbeat, deep and slow. I blink, and a sharp snap breaks the air. I spin around. Nothing moves. No branches shaking. No footprints in the soft soil except my own. Silence folds in again, deep, expectant. I take a step back from the pit. The hum softens, but it doesn't stop. It follows me like a low echo beneath my feet. A puddle glints near a fallen log, catching the pale light. I move toward it without thinking, drawn by the stillness of surface. The water is dark, coated with a thin layer of frost. I crouch, look down, wait for my own tired face to look back. It does, but something is wrong. My cheeks are lifted, my lips curl upward, smiling. I'm not smiling. I feel my breath freeze in my throat. Cold air presses against my neck. The reflection smiles wider, teeth too white in the dim light, eyes too calm, too knowing. I touch my face, slow, careful, trembling. My skin is still, neutral, not a hint of a smile. The reflection doesn't match. It keeps staring up at me, grin stretching like it's pleased, I finally noticed. The hum rises again. Not loud, but closer. Right beneath the puddle. Right under my knees. My reflection's lips move. A slow curl downward like it's whispering something only the water can hear. I stand too fast, legs shaking. The puddle shifts, but the smile lingers in the dark surface as the water ripples. The pines around me tremble. Not from wind. Not from anything I can see. Just a faint vibration. The same rhythm as the hum. I back away until my heel hits a root. The forest feels larger now, stretched open around me. Waiting for me to breathe, waiting for me to choose a direction. But no matter where I turn, the trees look unfamiliar. The shadows bend toward me, leaning like tall figures trying to listen. I close my eyes for a moment, letting the cold settle against my skin, letting the silence press in until even the hum feels distant. When I open them again, the puddle is still. The smile is gone, just dark water under pale light. But I feel it, a quiet pull beneath the ground, patient and steady, as if the forest knows I will return to the pit, as if it's waiting for me to understand why the earth hums at all. I take one step back toward the trail, slow, careful, barely breathing. The forest watches. The hum softens, and the night closes around me like a quiet hand. Night comes slowly here. Thick clouds, low branches, a chill that sinks into the fabric of the tent. Late autumn air that feels older than the season should allow. I wake to silence, a heavy kind of quiet, the kind that presses against my ears, as if the forest wants me to listen. My breath forms small patches of fog in the dark. The fabric of the tent feels damp, edges cold enough to sting my fingertips. Something isn't right. I unzip the flap, just enough to look outside. The ground glows faintly under a pale, drifting haze. Moist earth, crushed pine needles, everything wet. That's when I see them. Footprints, human-sized, but stretched at the front, each toe long and curved, like something trying to mimic a shape it only half remembers that I stare until my eyes burn from the cold. The prints circle the tent in a perfect ring, never touching the walls, never too close, always stopping just out of reach. Fresh, deep, damp edges still sinking into the soil. I step out slowly, bare hands brushing against frozen air. The fog wraps around my legs, climbing higher with each breath I take. The smell hits me next. Wet fur, mixed with a faint sting of burnt wood, like a campsite abandoned too fast. My throat tightens. The prints lead away from the tent, drifting toward the trees. I follow them, moving as quietly as I can. Soft footsteps through frost and mud. But after only a few steps, the fog thickens. It curls up from the ground, swallowing the shapes in front of me. The prints fade into white nothing. Every direction looks the same. Pale shadows twisting, branches disappearing into the cold. I take another step, then another, but the fog clings to my face, warm on my cheeks, cool on my neck, tasting faintly like ashes. I can't see more than a few feet ahead. I turn back, searching for the tent. It's gone, hidden behind a sheet of gray that feels too dense to be natural. The air grows heavy, as if something breathes beside me. I rub my arms, trying to keep the fear from sinking deeper. A rustling moves through the haze. Low, slow, dragging, like wet leaves pulled forward by careful hands. I whisper to myself that it's nothing, just the forest settling, just the cold. But then I hear it, my voice, calling from somewhere between the trees. Not loud, not scared, just steady, soft, almost gentle. It repeats my name the way I would say it in my own head. A perfect mirror of my breath, my tone, my quiet. My chest tightens. My breath catches halfway. I shake my head, backing away even though I can't see where I'm going. The fog parts for only a moment, just enough to reveal the footprints again. Right behind me, fresh, pressed into the earth at my heels. I didn't hear them being made. I didn't feel anything approach. But they're there, trailing me, following every step I take. The fog closes again. A thick curtain, a cold wall. My voice echoes from the left now, the same steady tone, calling me deeper. The smell of burnt wood grows sharper, like coals stirred under damp branches. The cenifer wraps around me, warm and wrong, settling on the air like something alive. I take a breath that tastes like smoke. My tongue feels dry, chilled at the edges. I hold my arms close, try and feel the shape of myself, making sure I'm still here. The footprints circle me now, a slow ring forming in the mist. Toe marks long and curved, each one pressing deeper into the soil, as if something enormous, something careful, is stepping just out of sight. I close my eyes. I listen. Soft footsteps approach, but never arrive. The fog shifts like a living thing, brushing against my sleeves, my hair, my neck. Then the echo of my voice fades, slow at first, then all at once. Silence settles. Cold. Complete. When I open my eyes, the fog thins enough to reveal a faint glow, my tent, distant but real, edges trembling in the haze. The footprints around me stop, frozen mid-step, like whatever made them is standing still, listening. I walk back toward the tent, slow and careful, each breath sharp in the cold air. The fog doesn't follow. It only watches, holding its distance. When I reach the tent, I crouch inside, pulling the zipper closed with shaking fingers. I wait in the dark, listening for the rustling, for the voice, for anything. But the forest gives me nothing. Only the quiet, only the cold, and the faint smell of burnt wood that lingers long after the fog drifts away. The fire burns low tonight. Late autumn air clings to the ground, heavy and cold, filled with the smell of damp bark and fading smoke. My breath drifts through the stillness like a thin cloud, dissolving before it reaches the trees. I sit close to the small flame, letting its pale light warm the front of my hands. The forest around me feels wider than before, emptier, as if everything living has stepped back to watch from the dark. That's when I see it. A thin shape, stretched and faint, flickering on the far edge of firelight. At first I think it's just a shadow cast by the trees, a trick of the flame. But it moves, slowly, just a slight shift, matching the tilt of my shoulders with a pause, like it's learning the rhythm of my breathing. I lift my hand. The shadow lifts its own. Delayed, but perfect. A chill crawls up my arms. The fire crackles behind me, warm and soft, but the cold from that distant outline sinks deeper. I straighten my back. The shadow straightens too. Its edges ripple, thin as smoke, but its shape is unmistakably mine. I whisper a small breath into the dark. The shadow tilts its head, curious, like it heard something I didn't say out loud. I try to speak, just a quiet word, something simple, something to break the stillness. My voice barely escapes, cracked and thin. The shadow responds by leaning forward, as if trying to catch the sound, as if tasting it. Fog drifts in from the right, slow at first, then thicker, gathering at my feet. The pale layer climbs toward my knees, swallowing the edges of the fire's glow. The shape shifts again, flickering like a dying ember. Its outline blurs as the fog curls around it. But those faint movements don't stop. It lifts an arm. I feel the echo of that motion in my own shoulder. A strange tug, light but undeniable. I blink hard, trying to clear my vision. The fog reflects the firelight, glowing softly, turning the air into a hazy orange blur. I wipe my eyes with the back of my sleeve. When I look again, the shadow is closer. Not by much, just a step, but close enough that the cold seems to pulse in my chest. My breath catches. The forest holds perfectly still. No rustling, no wind, no distant hum of insects. Just me, the fire, and that pale, flickering outline that watches every movement I make. I slowly shift my weight. It mirrors me, delayed but exact, like it's bound to my limbs by invisible string. The fog climbs higher, brushing my elbows, wrapping around the fire pit. The flame sputters, shrinking into a trembling point of light. The shadow tilts its head again, wider this time. A slow, bending motion, unnatural in how smoothly it moves. My pulse thuds in my ears. I don't know if the shape is studying me or waiting for something. The fog thickens, swallowing the last of the firelight until only a faint glow spreads through the haze. The shadow flickers like a candle behind frosted glass. I take one soft step back. It does nothing at first, just trembles at the edge of the dim light. Then, with a delayed shiver, its whole form shifts backward too. A mirror, a follower, Something tied to me in ways I can't understand. I blink once slow, and it's gone. The space where it stood is empty, but the fog there feels denser, as if something passed through it a moment ago. The trees remain silent, their branches stiff, their trunks cold and watchful. My skin prickles. A faint weight lingers at the edge of my vision. Not a shape, not a shadow, just the echo of being seen. The fire dies down into a soft glow, barely enough to warm the back of my hand. I crouch closer, pulling in what little heat is left. The forest seems to breathe again, a slow release of tension, the air warming by a degree, but the feeling doesn't fade. That quiet echo stays with me, a trace of movement that isn't mine, a presence without shape, a memory pressed into the fog. And even after the flames vanish, even after the cold settles deep into the dirt, I swear something out there still waits for my next move. Evening settles over the forest in a slow, dim fade. Autumn chill clings to the air, thick enough to taste, thick enough to feel on the back of my tongue. The sky above me is a pale wash of fading orange, slipping behind tall branches that knit together like ribs overhead. I pull my jacket tighter. The path is narrow, soft with fallen needles, quiet under my steps, but my skin prickles as if something walks just behind me. I stop. The forest holds its breath. Nothing stirs. Then cold breath brushes the back of my neck. Not wind, not air. A focused, icy exhale that sinks to the fabric and touches my spine. I turn too quickly, heart tightening. No one stands there. Just trees, tall, straight, still, but the branches above sway. Only the ones above me, moving slow, creaking, bending as if something heavy shifted between them. The rest of the forest stays still. A faint rustle runs through the needles overhead. Soft at first, like fingertips combing through leaves. I take a single step back. My breath fogs in front of me, even though the air shouldn't be this cold. Between the branches, something glows. 2 points. A pair of eyes. Pale, thin light, almost silver. They flick from one tree to another, fast, too fast to follow, never blinking. Each time they reappear, they're a little lower, a little closer. The rustling grows louder, shaking loose bits of bark, making the branches tremble even though the wind is gone. My body tenses. I can feel the vibration through the ground, a faint tremor running up my legs. Then it stops. All of it. The eyes, the rustling, the shifting branches. Silence drops like a weight, pressing against my ears, flattening every other sound. I swallow hard. The air tastes sharp, metallic, as if something burned nearby hours ago and the scent never fully faded. I take another step down the path. Needles crunch softly under my boots, and I feel it. That presence behind me again. Not touching, just close. Close enough that the fine hair on my arms lifts as if reaching for an unseen hand. I walk faster. My breath steadies into short, shallow pulls. The trees on either side narrow, closing me into a corridor of shadows. Something shifts above. A creak, a gentle sway. The faint outline of something moving along the branches, matching my pace. For a moment, I think it's my imagination pulling shapes from the dim light. But then I stop suddenly, and whatever is above me stops too. My hands shake. I can feel the cold trailing down my neck again, slow this time, almost careful, like it knows I'm listening, like it wants to make sure I do. The glowing eyes return, far ahead on the trail now, low to the ground, watching, studying. They blink out, then reappear at my left, then vanish again. My pulse deepens, heavy in my chest. I turn in a slow circle, trying to catch anything, any hint of movement between the trees. But the forest is too dense. Too much shadow. Too much fog beginning to gather at the roots. A whisper of rustling rises again. Not leaves this time. Something heavier. Dragging across bark. Sliding across branches. It circles. Once. Twice. Always staying just out of sight. The sky darkens more than it should. The path ahead seems unfamiliar, though I walked it all afternoon, and the realization settles in my stomach, cold and heavy. I've been followed, all day, silently, waiting for the light to fade enough that I'd finally notice. The last bit of dusk melts away. leaving only the dim glow of the forest itself. My breath hangs pale in front of me, breaking apart in the cold. Every instinct pulls tight, urging me to move, to run, to do something, but my legs feel anchored. The branches above shift one last time. Something large settles its weight, the wood groaning beneath it, just beyond where I can see. I close my eyes for a moment, steadying the tremble in my hands. The forest holds still, perfectly still, as if waiting to see what I'll do next. When I open my eyes, the path seems darker, narrower. Shadows crowd closer, listening to my breath. The presence doesn't move again, but it doesn't leave either. It lingers somewhere above me, quiet, watching, patient, as if it knows the night is only beginning. The fog settles low tonight, thick, cold against my cheeks, heavy across the early autumn trail. I move slowly, letting the pale light of dawn guide me through the trees. The forest is quiet in a way it shouldn't be. No insects, no morning birds, only a faint hum in the distance, like something holding its breath. I follow the path until it opens to a small creek, a thin ribbon of water slipping between smooth stones. It should be bubbling, chattering, moving with its usual restless voice. But it isn't. The creek babbles without sound. A full, steady flow swallowed by the fog. My ears strain for anything. Nothing pushes through the silence. Not even my own footsteps feel real on the damp ground. I kneel beside the bank. Cold air presses against my skin, sharper near the water. The surface shifts in strange patterns, as if stirred by a slow, unseen hand. Reflections shimmer, stretched at odd angles. I lean closer. My face stares back at me from the silver surface. But the shape is wrong. The jaw too long. The eyes too dark. The trees behind me bend inward in the reflection, though they stand straight around me. Everything is tilted, twisted, as if the world beneath the water follows its own rules. A faint rustling moves behind me, soft, uneasy, like leaves brushing against something that isn't there. I turn, but the trees are still, branches unmoving in the stagnant air. The forest feels frozen mid-breath, yet the shadows keep drifting. Slow streaks of darkness, sliding across the roots, slipping between the trunks. They don't match the shapes around me. They stretch when nothing moves. They twist even when the light does not change. A chill crawls over my spine. I stand, wiping damp earth from my palms. Something about the creek pulls at me like a quiet whisper, asking me to step closer again. The fog curls around my ankles, cool and soft as it tightens. The hum grows stronger. Low, steady, almost like it's deep underground. My heart beats slow, as if the forest is trying to match its rhythm to mine. I glance down at the water again. The reflection shifts the moment I look, like it had been waiting. Its head tilts before mine does. Its shoulders rise higher than I remember lifting them. Its mouth remains closed, but there's a tension there, a stretch of the lips that doesn't belong to me. The silence thickens until it presses against my ears. I swallow. The taste of cold metal clings to the back of my tongue. Something moves beneath the surface. Not fast, not sharp, just a slow drift of shadow, circling under reflection, brushing along its distorted outline. I take a step back. My heel sinks into wet soil. A faint crack echoes through the stillness, though I know I didn't step on anything. I freeze. Breath trapped in my throat. Shadows weave between the trees again. They stretch longer this time, almost touching the edge of the creek, almost touching me. A ripple forms across the water, spreading outward in perfect rings. The reflection wavers, its features smooth. Its eyes blink once, too slow, too deliberate. My chest tightens. I inch farther away, moving carefully so the mud doesn't slip under my boots. The air feels colder the more distance I put between myself and the bank, as if the creek doesn't want me leaving. The water stills. The reflection sharpens. It stares up at me with a calm expression, one I don't feel at all. Its eyes soften around the edges. Its mouth relaxes. Then the lips curl. A small, deliberate smile. Not wide, not frantic, just enough to show intention, enough to show awareness. My throat goes dry. The fog thickens around my legs, rising higher, clinging to the fabric of my clothes. I feel a faint vibration in the ground, almost like the soft footsteps of something circling below the soil. I step back again. Another. The smile in the reflection deepens, though my face remains frozen. The forest leans into the silence with me, branches heavy, shadows waiting. The water begins to tremble, not from movement above, but from something shifting beneath, a slow swell, as if something is rising just out of sight. I stop walking. I can't force my legs to move anymore. The fog wraps around my knees now, clinging, chilling, thick with a damp hum. The reflection never breaks eye contact. It feels like watching another version of myself wake up inside the creek, beneath that quiet surface. I swallow again, tasting cold, stagnant air. My heartbeat stutters in my chest. I take one final step away from the bank, a soft one, barely a retreat, and the reflection smiles wider. I don't wait for whatever comes next. I turn from the water, slow, careful, trying not to disturb the silence that feels too sharp to touch. As I walk back into the fog-filled trees, the hum fades behind me. The shadows fall still. The forest closes its breath around me once more, but the feeling stays. The sense that something waited beneath that surface. Patient, watching, and that it knows I stepped away. The forest is quiet tonight. Autumn air hangs damp and heavy. Every step I take sinks into soft needles and moss, pressing a faint smell of wet earth into my nose. I see it first as a pale glow between the trees. A lantern, hanging from a low branch, swinging slightly. Though there is no flame, the light flickers, pulsing like it has a heartbeat. Shadows stretch across the forest floor. Shapes twist in the dim glow. Elongated limbs, impossible angles, creatures I cannot name. They crawl along roots, coil around rocks, and vanish before I can focus. I step closer. The fog rises around my ankles, cool and damp. It carries the faint scent of charred wood, though the lantern holds no fire. The branches above shiver, though no wind moves them. A rustle behind me. Soft, careful. I spin, heart tightening, expecting to see someone or something. Nothing. The lantern swings gently in place. No hands. No wind. Just it, moving by some unseen rhythm. I breathe slowly, trying to calm the rising tension. The light flickers again, sharper this time, and the shapes around me warp, crawling along the trees as if they're alive. Each shadow moves with intent, pausing when I glance their way. A whisper flits through the fog, soft, almost playful, calling me deeper into the forest, urging me forward, though the words are barely sound. I hesitate, the damp earth clinging to my boots. The lantern sways gently overhead, casting my own shadow longer than it should be, stretching into the shapes that seem to wait. I take one step forward, then another. The whispers trail behind, almost coaxing, almost laughing. The forest feels full of breath I cannot see, pressing lightly against the back of my neck, brushing along my shoulders. I reach the base of the tree, holding the lantern. Its glow feels warmer here, flickering faster, like a pulse racing in the dark. I notice the shadows nearest me writhe, bending into figures that seem to mirror my own movements, only slower, delayed. I step back, trying to distance myself, but the fog is thicker now, clinging like wet silk. Every sound, my own breath, the soft rustle of my coat, the distant snap of a twig, seems louder in comparison. Then it happens, a sudden snap, sharp, breaking the thick silence like glass. I freeze, every nerve on edge. The lantern swings gently above. Still no flame, no one in sight. The whispers have stopped, only the soft rustling of leaves, as though the forest itself is holding its breath. I glance down at the shadows. They're closer now, creeping along roots and rocks, brushing against each other in patterns that almost feel intentional. The shapes writhe for a moment, then freeze as if they notice me noticing. I take a careful step away. The lantern swings again, slow, deliberate. It seems to tilt toward me, guiding, pointing, watching. I can feel the forest pressing in from all sides. Branches above stretch out like fingers. Roots shift underfoot as if alive. Even the fog coils around my legs, moving with a weightless curiosity. The air smells faintly of smoke and damp earth, mixing with a hint of something metallic, almost blood-like. Each inhalation is sharper than the last, carrying the sensation that the forest itself is listening, waiting, evaluating. I glance back once. The lantern's light wavers. Shadows move again, independent of anything real, stretching across the trunks and crawling along the floor. I realize the shapes are not just around me. They are behind me, weaving closer to my own feet, circling silently. The forest feels alive with expectation, as if every branch, every shadow, every drifting wisp of fog is attuned to my breathing. I step forward, slowly, guided by the faint pulse of the lantern's glow. It swings gently, almost hypnotic. The whispers return, quieter now, urging, patient, coaxing. The fog thickens further, curling over my shoes and around my calves. The lantern flickers in rhythm with my heartbeat. Every shadow seems to follow, bending and leaning, alive yet intangible. I stop, listen. The snap echoes in my ears again, faint this time, distant. Nothing moves, yet the presence is undeniable, watching, waiting, patient. I take one last careful glance at the lantern. The light flickers, then steadies into a soft, pulsing glow. The shadows crouch in corners of my vision, as if they've been waiting for me to notice their quiet vigil. I turn away, stepping carefully along the damp path. The fog swirls around me. The whispers fade into nothing, but the pulse of the lantern lingers in my mind, guiding, watching, patient. Even as I walk deeper into the forest, the shapes stretch and sway at the edges of my vision, and the hush of the trees presses softly against my back. The forest thins as I move forward. Night hangs low, heavy with frost and pale moonlight. Each breath floats before me, fogging, curling, vanishing into the cold air. I step into a clearing. The ground glows faintly beneath the moon, frost like silver dust spread across the grass. It shimmers under my boots, cold enough to bite through my shoes. I glance back. My footprints vanish almost immediately. The earth swallows them whole, as if I never walked here. A chill presses along my spine. The fog curls along the edges of the clearing, low and whispering. Shapes begin to form within it. Pale, soft-edged forms, drifting just beyond focus. Watching. I hold my breath. They don't move closer. Not yet, but the weight of their gaze is heavier than anything in the air. A shiver runs down my arms. The frost crunches softly under my feet. Every sound is amplified. The snap of a twig, the whisper of wind through distant branches. And still, the shapes remain, floating silently in the haze. I try to take a careful step forward. One foot lands. The frost doesn't crack. The air doesn't respond. My foot lifts. No trace behind me. A feeling creeps in. Not fear exactly. Something sharper. Something that whispers, I do not belong here. The pale forms drift closer, slowly, impossibly. Their outlines blur and straighten like smoke pressed into faint human shapes. I cannot see faces. I cannot see features. Only the sense that they are watching, waiting, measuring. I feel the cold seep deeper, through my jacket, into my bones. A hum of frost in the air, vibrating against my teeth. I take a step backward. Another, each one lighter than it should be. Like the ground refuses to hold me. The shapes do not follow. They simply hover at the edge of my vision. Waiting, I turn, scanning the tree-line for a path out. Branches twist overhead, heavy with frost. The moon catches a single shard of ice, flashing briefly, like a distant eye. The fog swirls in the clearing, thick enough to taste, damp and metallic. I start walking, soft footsteps over frost, each one echoed by the clearing silence. Every movement feels observed, every breath tracked. A sense of eyes tracing my back presses down with each step. The pale shapes stretch taller in the fog, elongating slightly as I move. I glance back. They do not advance. Yet the cold seems heavier there, bending the air toward them. I feel a static pull at the edges of my vision. Shadows bending slightly, too precise, too patient. The clearing widens, though the fog compresses in my perception. Space twists, distance deceives. I step faster, boots crunching lightly, arms tight against my chest. The frost prickles my skin, sharp as tiny needles. The fog swirls into soft spirals, each one seeming to linger where the forms drift. A hum rises, barely audible, vibrating through the air, through my teeth, through my chest. I glance over my shoulder. Nothing moves, but I feel their gaze, still as ice, measuring, judging, waiting for me to falter. I break into a light jog, careful to make no noise beyond the crunch beneath my feet. The clearing seems endless now. The fog twists tighter. The pale shapes retreat slowly, fading back into mist, but the sense of eyes does not leave. Finally, the trees press close again. The moonlight dims behind thick branches. The frost loses its glow, blending into the darkness beneath the trees. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight on my shoulders ease slightly. Yet the memory of those forms lingers, the unseen eyes tracking each step, the cold pressing closer than it should, the frost swallowing footprints, as though erasing me from a world. I do not look back again. I move forward, faster this time, into the denser forest. The clearing disappears behind me, hidden in fog and moonlight, but the echo of being watched stretches far beyond its edges, settling deep in my chest, in my bones, in the quiet breath of the forest itself. Even as the trees close around me, I feel them waiting, just beyond sight, in the frost, in the fog, in the stillness that should not exist. And I know the clearing is not empty. It never was. It waits. The forest thickens as dusk settles. A chill hangs in the air, damp and earthy. The scent of decaying leaves drifts faintly, mixed with the sharp tang of moss. Old oaks tower above me, dark and still, or so I think, because when I glance back, a branch seems to stretch ever so slightly, just out of focus. I step carefully over gnarled roots. The ground is soft, damp, sucking at my boots. Each movement feels magnified in the silence, every crunch echoed by the trees themselves. I notice the bark of the oaks. It swells subtly, then contracts, like lungs, slow, deliberate, breathing. I hold my breath. The sensation presses against my chest. The forest exhales in quiet waves, rolling to the fog and curling around my ankles. A rustle rises from the underbrush, soft at first, then deeper, a vibration that I feel in my bones, as if the soil beneath me has a heartbeat. I freeze. The pulse continues, slow, measured, beneath the ground. Beneath me, shadows stretch along the forest floor. They twist unnaturally, dragging along the trunks and roots, leaning closer with every step I take. Even the fog seems to bend, guided by some unseen force. I try to focus on the path ahead. Branches scrape softly against each other, sighing. The air tastes damp, metallic, with a hint of something sweet and rotting. A soft, deliberate breath brushes past my cheek. Not wind, not air, something beside me. I dare not look. The oaks sway gently, though no wind moves them. The bark continues its rhythm, rising and falling in time with that hidden heartbeat. I can feel it in my feet, in my knees, as though the forest itself inhales and exhales around me. Shadows coil along the roots, curling and straightening, stretching toward me. They flicker in the corners of my vision, always there, always waiting. I step forward, careful not to disturb the delicate hum beneath the soil. Every footfall is absorbed by the earth, leaving nothing behind. The sensation of being watched grows heavier. Not just eyes, but awareness. Something exhales beside me again, slower this time. A damp warmth brushes my arm. I do not move. I do not turn. The fog thickens around the trunks, wrapping the oaks in pale mist. I feel their breath in the rising fog, in the pulsing bark. The rustling intensifies. The heartbeat quickens, just a fraction. A subtle, creeping dread settles over my shoulders. I glance downward. The roots twist, dark veins across the forest floor. Shadows stretch along them like dark smoke, curling toward the fog, toward me. I step carefully, each movement deliberate, controlled. The forest hums beneath me, alive and aware. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. The space beside me seems to pulse. I feel the heat of breath, slow and heavy. I dare not look. I dare not confirm what follows. The oaks continue their rhythm, bark rising, falling like lungs. The forest hums, rustling, breathing, alive and quiet, subtle waves. I step again. The fog curls tighter around my legs, damp and clinging. Each shadow stretches, drawing the edges of the trees closer, shaping the air. I realize the path behind me has disappeared into mist. Only the oaks remain, breathing, watching, waiting. The heartbeat beneath the soil slows slightly, but the exhale beside me remains. Steady, patient, as though measuring my hesitation, my fear. I force my legs forward, step by step, softly, deliberately. The forest exhales around me. Branches sigh, roots pulse, shadows twist. I glance up at the oaks. Their trunks rise into darkness. The bark rises, falls. Subtle, slow, a living rhythm I cannot name. I take another step. Another. The forest hums in response, quiet, vast, eternal. I dare not look beside me again. I dare not hear the soft breath lingering. Finally, the path opens slightly. The fog thins. The roots straighten. The shadows shrink back to the edges of vision. The hum fades. But the oaks continue. Their bark rises, falls like lungs. Breathing quietly, patiently, watching. And I know I am not alone. Fog hangs heavy tonight. The forest swallows sound. Every step presses quietly into damp earth, needles and moss sticking to my boots. Then I hear it, a distant laugh. High-pitched, childlike, carried on the fog. It floats, soft, brittle, almost playful. I freeze. The air tastes cold, metallic. The scent of wet leaves curls into my nose, sharp and damp. I follow it. Careful, slow. Every step crunches lightly. The laugh echoes faintly, bouncing off unseen trees. Then stops. I reach a cluster of broken branches. Nothing else. No child. No figure. Only splintered wood and the lingering scent of damp earth. Then the laugh returns. Closer this time. But it mimics me. The sound of my own breath. My own footsteps. A shiver runs down my spine. The fog thickens. I can taste in the air, dense, cold, pressing against my cheeks. The laughter shifts. Soft, then warped. It becomes whispers, almost intelligible, curling around my ears. Urging, coaxing. The words I cannot understand twist into shapes of my own thoughts. Shapes form in the fog. Faint, moving slowly, circling. They do not walk. They drift, hover, like smoke caught in invisible currents. I stop, heart thumping. They slow with me, pause, observing. I can feel their gaze across the back of my neck. Cold, patient, unyielding. The forest hums quietly, a static beneath the fog. Branches sway despite the absence of wind. Leaves whisper against each other, brushing my skin softly. I take a careful step forward. The shapes follow, circling silently, keeping distance. Always just at the edge of perception. Faint glimpses through curling fog. The laughter rises again, mimicking me, then changing, bending into voices I recognize, and some I do not. They merge with the whispers, a tide of sound pressing close, yet untouchable. I glance around. The fog swirls at eye level, curling around trunks and roots. Shadows stretch along the forest floor, elongating unnaturally. Each movement is mirrored in the mist. I take another step. Another. Soft footsteps echo, though I am alone. The laughter becomes a hum, resonating through the ground, through my chest. Every nerve is alert. Every breath shallow, measured. The shapes drift closer. No sound except my own heartbeat and the echoing of my steps. Yet the sense of presence grows. Heavy, constant, unseen eyes tracing every motion. I pause, hold my breath. The fog swirls tight around my calves, damp and heavy. The laughter fades briefly, then returns, low, distorted, distant, but unmistakable. I realize something undeniable. I am not alone. I have never been. The shadows press at the edges of my vision, still and patient. The fog carries the faint scent of wet fur, burnt leaves, and cold soil. The forest hums in response to their movement, subtle, alive. I take another step. The shapes circle closer, but still do not touch. Every inhale tastes metallic and damp. Every exhale trembles in the thick air. I cannot see their faces. I cannot name their forms. Only the impression of attention, a quiet insistence that I am noticed, measured, evaluated. The laughter twists again, higher pitched, fleeting, mimicking, distorting, dissolving into whispers. It curls around the fog, brushing my ears, teasing the edges of my awareness. I move forward. Branches scrape softly above, fog clinging to my jacket. Soft footsteps follow my own, always matching, always echoing. I glance behind. The clearing is empty, yet the shapes remain in my mind, hovering just beyond reach, hovering in the fog. I stop at a small patch of soft moss. Breathe shallowly. The laughter fades into whispers again. The fog swirls slowly around me. And I know I have never been alone here. Not for a moment. The forest remembers. The fog remembers. The shapes remember. The echoes of laughter linger. Soft, distant, patient, waiting. I step forward. The forest breathes around me. The fog shifts, and the whispers fold into silence. I am not alone, and I never was. The fog hangs heavy tonight. The forest is quiet, yet every sound is amplified. My breath drifts in front of me, curling into the pale light of the moon. A figure stands ahead. Still, pale, hollow-eyed. The trees obscure it, but the eyes follow, unblinking, unyielding. I take a careful step. The mist swirls around my boots, damp and cold. Each footfall presses softly into the wet earth. I glance again. The figure has not moved, yet the hollow eyes seem closer, closer than they should be. A shiver crawls up my spine. The air tastes metallic, damp, thick with cold. The forest exhales silently around me. I blink. When my eyes open, the figure is nearer. Impossible speed. The fog seems to bend around it, swallowing space, folding distance. My pulse hammers. The hollow gaze pierces my mind, cold and sharp. I try to turn away, to look elsewhere. The figure does not move its head, yet I feel it watching every thought, every breath. Branches scrape softly above. The mist clings to my jacket. The faint scent of wet earth curls into my nose. I take a slow step backward, then another. The figure remains. I start to move faster. Soft footsteps crunch the damp leaves. The hollow eyes are always there, closer with every blink. A low hum rises from the forest floor, vibrating under my feet, under my boots. The trees sway gently, though there is no wind. Shadows twist unnaturally along the trunks that I glance over my shoulder. The path I came from is swallowed by fog. The figure is still there, pale, hollow-eyed, patient. A pulse of dread seeps into my chest. Slow, steady, in time with my racing heartbeat that I flee. Branches tug at my clothes. Leaves slap against my arms. The cold presses against my cheeks, stiff and sharp. The forest seems alive, bending space around me. Each blink brings a figure closer. Impossible, unnatural that I stumble over a root. The hollow gaze does not waver. The figure waits. A shadow coiled in fog, unyielding. I taste fear, bitter, metallic, heavy on my tongue. The fog thickens. The figure begins to fade, yet the eyes remain, burning, hollow, fixed. I can feel them through the mist, through the trees, through my own skull. I pause to catch my breath. The ground is soft beneath my feet, damp and cold. The windless forest exhales slowly, surrounding me. The figure is gone, yet the pulse remains. A weight in the fog, in the air, in the silence itself. I force my legs forward, step by careful step. The trees close around me. Shadows twist and stretch along roots and trunks. Branches reach, scraping against my jacket, tugging at my arms. I glance back. Nothing visible, only the fog, curling and coiling. But the hollow eyes are gone only in shape, not in presence. I feel them watching, waiting. The forest hums quietly beneath the frost, beneath the soil. I step over a patch of wet leaves. Every movement is measured, silent. The fog curls around my boots. Every breath is visible, curling and fading. The pulse lingers. Soft, steady, oppressive. I cannot shake it. The hollow gaze remains, etched into the edges of my mind. I keep moving. The path opens slightly, trees thinning. The fog swirls, pale moonlight flashing through branches. I blink. The The figure is gone. The hollow eyes are gone. Yet I feel it still, a pressure behind my eyes, a whisper beneath my ribs. The forest exhales once more. I do not look back again. I move forward, faster now. The pulse fades only slowly. But the memory of those hollow eyes lingers. Cold, empty, watching. Even as the fog thins and the trees stretch higher, I know it is waiting. Somewhere beyond the mist, beyond the shadows. A patient presence, hollow, unblinking, endless. And I know I will never truly leave it behind. The forest smells alive tonight. Earthy, wild, ancient. Something primal curls in the fog, pressing against the edges of my senses. A low hum rises from the underbrush. A growl, soft but resonant, vibrating through the roots beneath my boots. I freeze. The air tastes damp, metallic, thick with the scent of wet fur. Shadows dart between trees. Small movements first, rustling leaves, soft footsteps. But wrong. They mimic animals I know, yet bend in impossible ways. A rabbit hops and stretches its limbs too long. A fox slinks, then flickers into shapes my mind cannot hold. I grip a branch to steady myself. Rough bark scratches my palm, but it pulses beneath my fingers like something breathing, alive. A heartbeat I cannot name. I pull back slightly, but the sensation lingers, thrum beneath my skin. The fog curls around me, dense, clinging. Every inhale is cold, wet, filled with the smell of moss and fur. Every exhale rises in visible puffs, dissolving into the gray. Something passes, unseen, close enough that I feel air shift along my arm. I turn, nothing, yet the feeling of presence remains, heavy and patient. Branches above sway slowly, though the wind is still. A rustling crescendo somewhere to my right, then vanishes into silence. The forest exhales quietly, leaving only tension in its wake. The shadows move again. I see them flicker through peripheral vision, shapes that bend like living smoke, curling across roots and fallen leaves. Every form is familiar yet wrong. A deer, a fox, a bird, but stretched, twisted, unnatural. They mimic life, but hold none of its warmth. I step forward, careful. The soil beneath my boots feels alive, spongy, almost inhaling. The low hum rises again, vibrating underfoot. Every nerve sharp, every muscle tense. The scent of wet fur deepens, pressing into my memory, ancient, predatory. A sudden snap, close, sharp, makes me jerk. The branch I hold pulses violently beneath my hand. I pull back instinctively. Soft footsteps pass mere inches from me, silent against the moss. I dare not look. The shadows circle slowly now. Soft, measured, deliberate. They mimic the forest around me. Yet something is off. Something watching. Something waiting. The fog thickens further, curling around my calves, sticky and damp. The air is cold, almost viscous, pressing against my lungs. Every sound is amplified. A twig creaks, leaves whisper, my own breathing echoes back to me. I move cautiously, every step deliberate. The shadows shift in rhythm of my motion, but always just out of reach. I sense them in the corners of my vision, felt more than seen. The growl hums again low, vibrating through the forest floor. It resonates in my chest, through my bones, making my skin tingle with awareness. The scent of wet fur thickens. It is all around me, unseen, unstoppable. I glance down at the branch in my hands. It pulses softly again, alive in ways I cannot name. The fog swirls and eddies, carrying hints of damp earth, moss, and something darker. Something older than me, older than the forest itself. I step forward again. Every motion is mirrored by shadows, but they do not touch. They circle, patient, waiting for me to misstep. The growl hums closer, then fades. My breath catches in my throat. A sudden cold brushes my cheek. Something unseen moves past, brushing my jacket. I dare not turn. The forest feels alive, watching, breathing with me, around me. I am part of its rhythm now, yet it is not mine. I continue forward, careful and deliberate. The pulse beneath my hand slows, then steadies. The fog curls higher around my boots, and the forest exhales softly, ancient and patient. The shadows linger at the edge of vision, distant growls fading into hums. The the scent of wet fur pressing lightly, then fading, leaving only memory, tension, and awareness of presence. I am alone, yet the forest has not released me. Something lingers in the fog, in the shadows, in the pulse beneath the soil. Patient, watching, primal. The forest floor is wet and soft. Patches of mud glisten in the dim moonlight. Each puddle catches the pale sky, though the shapes above twist strangely. I kneel slightly to examine one. The water shimmers, reflecting impossible angles. Clouds fold and bend in ways that should be impossible. The reflection of the trees stretches, doubling, collapsing, alive. I see myself, but not quite. My eyes look wider. My lips curl into a grin I am not making. A slow shiver curls up my spine. Branches above sway gently. The wind is still, yet they seem to move in reverse, bending toward the earth and then snapping back up. A rustling hums through the leaves, soft, almost teasing. I stare into the puddle. Whispers ripple from the water. My name, soft, drawn out, familiar, wrong. I step back. The mud squelches beneath my boots. The puddle remains. The reflection does not. Or perhaps it does, staring still, even as I move away. A weight settles in my chest, cold and patient. The air smells damp, earthy, and faintly metallic. My breath rises in fog, curling in front of me. Every movement seems amplified. Leaves brush my jacket, dripping cold moisture. Each step presses deeper into the soft soil. I glance again at the puddle. The sky twists further. My reflection leans closer, lips parting into that same impossible grin. I feel it watching from another place, another version of myself. A pulse of unease travels from my chest to my fingertips. Shadows stretch across the forest floor. They mimic my steps, but slightly delayed, slightly off. Each movement I make is mirrored, echoed, warped. The forest seems to breathe around me, inhaling slowly, holding me inside it. I touch the edge of the puddle. The water ripples without wind. A whisper drifts over the surface, calling my name again, soft, coaxing, yet urgent. The mud feels cold against my fingertips, almost alive. I step back further. Each retreating step presses my boots deeper into wet soil. The reflection does not follow me. Or perhaps it does, but only in ways I cannot perceive. The grin lingers, eyes wide, watching. The forest hums quietly beneath the mist. Leaves tremble without wind. Branches shiver and stretch in impossible arcs. A faint metallic scent lingers, mixing with damp earth. My skin prickles. The puddles seem to shimmer, bending light in subtle, wrong ways. I dare to move again, step by slow step. The reflection remains behind, staring, waiting. Even as the puddles ripple, even as fog swirls higher, it does not fade. It mimics only me, and only me. The whispers are softer now, drawn into the fog. The grin becomes a memory, etched into the edge of perception. My reflection finally blinks. I do not. I am too aware, too tense, too cautious. I press on through the forest. The mud grips my boots. The air tastes metallic and cold. Every step echoes softly in the damp quiet. I glance back once more. The puddle remains. The reflection lingers, impossible, unblinking. And though I move away, it feels as if it follows, as if it waits for the moment I will let my guard down. The fog swirls higher. Shadows stretch along the forest floor. Branches sway gently without wind. The whispers are gone, leaving only memory and unease. I walk forward. The forest seems to breathe around me. The puddles glimmer, faintly in the distance. I feel eyes in the mud, watching, patient. The reflection, the grin, the whispers, they remain at the edges of my mind. Even as I leave the clearing behind, I cannot shake it. It lingers, cold, watching, impossible. The forest exhales quietly. I press forward, boots squelching softly in the wet earth. The puddles reflect only fog now, but I know better. I know they are still there, waiting. The fog hugs the forest floor. A chill rides it, curling into my sleeves, crawling along my neck. The pale light of the moon filters through pines, sharp and cold. I hear it first as a hum, low, constant, then a howl, stretching, vibrating under my ribs. It comes from a single tree, a pine standing taller, darker than the rest. The air tastes metallic and damp. Each gust of wind pushes a howl, making it stretch impossibly long, echoing against the other trees. It presses against my chest, against my pulse. I can feel it matching my heartbeat, slow and deliberate. Shadows move across the forest floor, not random. They twist and stretch, curling toward the tree and then retreating. Shapes form patterns, deliberate, calculating. I hesitate. My boots press softly into the wet soil. The bark of the pine seems to glisten in the pale light. I step closer. A faint smell rises, resin sharp, almost acrid, mixed with the damp forest. The low howl resonates again, deeper this time. It vibrates the soil beneath my feet. I stop. The tree is watching. I know it is. There is awareness here. Something in the trunk, in the needles, in the shadows curling around it. The fog thickens. The howl pulses with every inhale, every exhale I take. Leaves brush the air, whispering, trembling. I can almost feel fingers in the mist, circling, teasing. I take another step. The shadows stretch, elongating toward me. My breath rises in clouds. The soil feels damp beneath my fingers as I touch the trunk. It is cold, but not lifeless. A subtle vibration hums beneath my touch, rhythmic, alive. The howl sharpens, urgent. It curves around the forest, reaching the edges of my perception, whispering at my ears, deep in my chest. I can feel it calculating, judging, waiting. I look up. The branches sway gently, though the wind has died. The tips of the pine stretch, lean slightly toward me, then recoil. The shadows on the ground echo every small motion I make. My heartbeat rattles in my ears. I step back. The howl does not falter. It follows, low and undulating, resonating with my pulse, with my movement. I taste damp earth and resin on my tongue. The fog swirls higher, coiling around my legs like fingers. The forest feels alive tonight. Eyes in the shadows, shapes in the fog, whispers in the rustling of leaves. The howl pulses again, deep and knowing. Each vibration presses against my chest. Each beat matches mine. I realize I am not alone. The tree, the shadows, the fog, they are aware, they are patient, silent, except for the constant, low howl that vibrates through the air, through me, through everything. I take another step back. The soil squelches softly beneath my boots. The howl curves around the clearing, stretching impossibly, swallowing the quiet. I shiver, not from cold, but from knowing. I glance once more at the pine. It stands tall, still, ancient, yet alive, watching. The shadows curl at its base, stretching long in the pale moonlight, deliberate, waiting. The fog begins to thin. The howl diminishes slightly, but only enough to make me aware of its constant presence. It hums, pulses, lingers in the space between branches, in the mist, in the soil beneath me. I take one last step. The shadows twist, stretching, mirroring, mimicking. The tree exhales with the windless air. And though I leave the clearing, I can still feel it. The watching, the calculating, the howl pulsing with every step I take, matching my heartbeat. Even as I disappear into the deeper fog, the forest hums quietly. The pine stands alone and waits. The forest feels heavier today. Mist clings to every branch, settling over roots and leaves. The trail I know, familiar, worn, vanishes beneath the fog. I step forward cautiously. Each footfall presses softly into the damp earth. A chill rides the fog, curling around my ankles, crawling up my spine. Landmarks disappear. The moss-covered boulders, the twisted oaks, the curve in the stream. Gone. Only the silence remains, thick and almost tangible. My breath rises in clouds. I hear it echo slightly, warped by the fog. It is my own, yet not quite. Footsteps answer mine, soft, matching my pace, though no one walks beside me. I pause. The air tastes damp, earthy, faintly metallic. A rustling, subtle, brushes the periphery of my senses. The fog seems to pull closer, coiling around the trees, hiding the path behind a veil of white. I walk on. Shapes loom in the mist, shifting just beyond sight. Every step feels heavier. The forest whispers in static tones, leaves brushing leaves, branches sighing without wind. Then I see it. A figure stands far ahead, still, silent, face obscured. The fog swirls around it, softening edges, stretching shadows. I hesitate. The air hums faintly, vibrating against my skin. The soil beneath my boots feels unsettled, as if it remembers something I do not. I take another step. The figure does not move, yet the silence deepens. A faint breath reaches my ears. Too shallow to be human, too deliberate to be wind. I taste damp earth on my tongue, metallic, sharp. I approach. Every motion slows, thickened by the fog. The forest presses against me, dense, alive, aware. The figure seems impossibly still, yet the sense of being watched curls tight around my chest. I reach out, though not with my hands, my mind stretching toward it, and then the figure vanishes. No trace, no rustle, no echo, only the fog remains. It coils and shifts, swallowing space where it stood. The silence stretches, heavier now, almost oppressive. Footsteps answer mine still, faint, soft, somewhere ahead, or perhaps behind. I turn slowly. The trail is gone. Every familiar mark, every stone, every root, lost to the white haze. The forest breathes around me, slow, deep, like a heartbeat in the soil. I step forward again. Each step carries uncertainty. The fog seems to hum, low, vibrating through my chest, through my skull. A faint metallic scent rides the air, mingling with wet leaves and damp soil. Shadows shift unnaturally. Tree trunks elongate, bend slightly, whisper in subtle creaks. I realize I am no longer on the path I remember. Perhaps I never was. The forest watches. It waits. The fog curls around me, and the soft footsteps follow, mirroring every movement, always just out of reach. A low hum vibrates faintly in the distance, constant, patient. I pause again. The air tastes colder now, thicker, viscous. Breath rises, twisting, swirling in the mist. The absence of the figure leaves a pulse of dread, stretching out, lingering. I take another step. The fog parts slightly, revealing glimpses of what might have been a path. It twists away from me, coiling, folding into itself. I feel my pulse echo through the forest, matching the unseen footsteps. I realize I am utterly alone, yet not alone. The forest, the fog, the shadows, they move with me, around me, through me. The path I have known disappears completely, and I do not know where I began, nor if I can return. I breathe slowly, cautiously. The silence presses, thick, tangible. The mist shifts, curling along the soil, stretching toward me like pale fingers. And somewhere ahead, beyond sight, the forest hums, soft, patient, watching. I step forward. The echoing footsteps answer, always matching, always there. And the trail remains vanished. The clearing opens before me. Soft earth pressed and dark beneath a pale, foggy light. Mist clings to the ground, curling between low roots, drifting over moss that feels almost too still. The air tastes damp, heavy, carrying the scent of soil and decay. I step forward cautiously. Every footfall presses into the soft ground. The silence is so thick I hear it in my bones. Leaves barely rustle above. Then movement. A pale hand breaks the surface of the soil. Slowly, deliberately, fingers curling upward, claws of earth and shadow. I freeze. My breath hangs in the mist, a cloud of disbelief. The ground trembles faintly beneath my boots. Another hand emerges beside the first, pale, slick, impossibly still. I stare. They retreat instantly, sinking back into the soil as if aware of my gaze. The forest holds its breath with me. Mist swirls around the clearing, thickening, curling at my ankles, teasing the shape of shadows that were not there before. Whispered voices seep from the ground. No words, only pleas. Faint, almost lost beneath the fog. They hum beneath my feet, vibrating through bone and muscle. A static hum, earthy and low, like the forest itself breathing. I step back. The soil trembles, responsive. I feel each pulse through my boots, subtle, insistent. The hands stir again, fingers brushing through dark earth, reaching upward but never fully breaking the surface. I hold my gaze. The air hums softly, vibrating against my skin, carrying the smell of wet roots and old leaves. A faint metallic tang lingers, sharp, almost breath-like. The clearing feels alive in a way that is wrong, too deliberate, too aware. The hands retreat again, pale and silent. I notice the soil quivers in concentric ripples, like slow-motion breathing. Somewhere beneath the dirt, something waits, something patient. I cannot look away. The whispers grow, urgent yet still wordless. A cold sensation brushes my calves, rise like a tide through my body. Mist coils around my ankles, and the trembling of the earth intensifies beneath each step I take. I dare not move closer. Every instinct screams to run, yet curiosity roots me in place. Senses sharpening, the hum beneath the dirt, the faint slickness in the air, the quiet rustle of unseen wings or leaves. Another hand breaks the surface. It is longer this time, fingers thin and ghostly, veins faintly visible beneath pale skin. The trembling intensifies. I feel it not only beneath my feet, but through the air itself, brushing my shoulders, curling around my arms. I step back again, carefully, silently. The earth quivers. Whispers coil and rise, wrapping around me, pressing at my ears, teasing the edge of comprehension. I taste the tang of metal, faint but certain, mingling with the scent of damp wood and soil. The hands retreat slowly, deliberately. The fog thickens. Shadows stretch toward me from the trembling ground, reaching beyond the clearing's edge, grasping at nothing but the space between. A pulse of dread settles in my chest, heavy and quiet, almost contemplative. I breathe slowly, counting each exhale. The whispers ebb slightly, settling back into the soil. The ground quivers faintly, a heartbeat beneath the clearing, steady, unbroken, patient. The hands are gone. The fog swirls and hides the place they were, as if it had never been disturbed. I step backward again. Mist coils at my ankles, brushing my skin with a chill that feels alive. The clearing seems to pulse with memory, echoing faint, wordless calls. I cannot tell if it waits for me, or if I have only stumbled into its rhythm. I leave the clearing slowly, every step measured. The tremble beneath my boots fades gradually, leaving only the quiet hum of the forest. Mist swirls behind me, curling over the soft earth where hands once rose. The whispers are gone, but the memory of them lingers, pressed into the air, into the soil, into my chest. I glance back once. Nothing stirs. Only the fog, still, soft, and patient. And the clearing, empty now, yet somehow aware. I move on, footsteps quiet, careful, almost in prayer. The earth hums faintly beneath me, a low, steady pulse. And I know, even from a distance, that it waits, patient, watching, silent. The forest breathes in a pale, damp fog. It coils around the trunks of pines, curling at roots and rocks. Every step presses into soft, cold soil, but the mist seems to follow, deliberate. I inhale. The air tastes metallic, ancient, like it has existed before words. Fog drifts along the path, moving with intent. It wraps around branches, curling like fingers across my vision. Shadows flit at the edges, fleeting, shifting, never still. I pause. A branch rustles without wind. A hint of damp earth reaches my nose, but heavier, deeper. The mist presses against my skin, clinging, brushing like breath on the back of my neck. I walk slowly, careful. The fog curves ahead, forming walls where none should be. Every inhale brings a metallic tang, sharper now, biting at my teeth and lungs. It hums softly, or perhaps my ears imagine it. Shadows move faster than my gaze can follow. One sways to match my steps, just beyond reach. A chill wraps my spine, curling into my shoulders. The forest feels aware. I feel it watching. The fog shifts again. It coils around a fallen log, moving over moss as if liquid. I touch it, and it slips through my fingers, cold and wet, leaving a faint static hum in my skin. The metallic scent lingers, faintly clinging to my hair. I notice shapes, hints of forms, limbs, faces. just beyond comprehension. Every blink resets them, like the mist mocks me. My heartbeat thunders, loud in the hollow of my chest. I step forward. The fog curls around my ankles, up my calves, brushing every sense awake. I taste iron in the air, sharp and immediate, like blood and rain. The forest hums with silence, thick and patient. A shadow detaches, gliding along the ground. It mirrors a movement I did not make, but feels intimately known. The fog wraps tighter around the trees, wrapping space and time itself into one damp, breathing entity. I try to breathe slowly, but each inhalation carries a metallic, ancient tang deeper into my lungs. It vibrates against my chest, pushing against ribs like a living weight. The fog thickens, denser than memory. It coils between trees and roots, following, trailing, measuring. It is aware. It watches. It waits. Every step forward is met with resistance. I cannot feel, yet perceive. The forest floor seems to shift beneath me, subtle ripples, like shallow water. Leaves bend without wind, brushing my hands with cool dampness. A faint static hum threads through the air, vibrating against the mist. I stop. The fog hesitates too, curling around the edges of the clearing. Shadows stretch unnaturally, reaching outward, yet dissolve when I stare. The metallic taste fills my mouth, sharp and lingering. I realize I am not alone. The fog itself moves with thought. It pulses around me. It breathes. It feels. I step carefully, testing the air. Each movement echoes through the mist, a silent ripple across unseen surfaces. Shapes twist at the edge of vision, flitting, impossible, alien yet familiar. A low vibration passes through my feet, rhythmic, intentional. The fog curls tighter, brushing against my calves, thighs, pressing warmth and chill together. It coils around my arms, brushing hair from my face, carrying the scent of wet earth and iron. I breathe again. The air is alive, thick with intent. Every inhale tastes older than memory, deeper than fear. I turn slowly. Mist curls around the trunks, trailing my steps, lingering. Shadows flit past my vision, always just beyond comprehension. The forest waits. The fog waits. It knows me. I know it now. I take a careful step back. The fog thickens, curling like a living thing, swallowing the path I walked. Shadows drift past, untouchable yet persistent. The metallic tang fills my mouth with every breath, whispering of ancient, unmeasured time. I move on, feet pressing into soft, damp soil, mist brushing skin, taste lingering sharp and cold. It follows, always following, aware, breathing, patient. I glance behind. Nothing but mist curling and shifting, alive. And the forest exhales. The forest holds its breath. Fog curls low across the ground, damp against my ankles. Moonlight glances off wet leaves, pale and hesitant. A howl, but no sound reaches me. I feel it more than hear it, vibrating through chest and skull, pressing, pulsing. My ears ring. A dull ache spreads behind my eyes. Shadows flare at the edges of my vision. They twist, vanish, leaving nothing but black between the trees. I breathe slowly, but my chest tightens with each inhale. The forest seems empty, and yet it watches. I sense movement, small flickers of dark shapes among the trunks. Multiple presences, silent, patient. They hold in the shadows, just beyond recognition. The fog swirls around my legs, brushing skin like cold fingers. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of twig feels amplified. I think I hear a breath behind me, though the air is still. I turn. Nothing. Only shadows bending toward me. The howl resonates again, still soundless. It pulses through my chest, through my bones. A low vibration that feels alive, conscious, deliberate. The fog coils tighter, moving with intent. My steps are soft, hesitant, pressing into moss and wet leaves. Each footfall echoes too loudly in the unnatural silence. Branches sway. The wind cannot reach them. I smell damp earth, decaying leaves, and something sharper, metallic. I pause. Shadows flare, then vanish. Shapes bend at impossible angles, limbs stretching just enough to be unsettling. I feel eyes everywhere, tracing me, waiting for me to misstep. Every blink resets them, always present, always observing. The silence hums in my ears, thick with tension. I swallow. My own heartbeat feels loud, ragged. It joins a silent howl, pulsing through the trees, vibrating in tandem. A twig snaps, closer this time. I don't turn, but the pressure in my chest rises, tightening like a grip around my ribs. I sense multiple presences now, more than I can count. They watch from shadows between trunks, hiding yet palpable. The air tastes metallic, thick and cold, carrying the echo of something old, something patient. Every inhalation burns lightly, a warning in every molecule that I try to move. Slow steps, careful, deliberate. But the gaze does not waver. It follows. It multiplies. I am surrounded. The fog shifts, curling like liquid around roots, wrapping around me without touch. I step back, but the path I came from is swallowed in haze. Shadows flare again, distant shapes bending impossibly, then gone. My ears ring louder. The chest pressure tightens that I feel panic rising, slow and insistent. My hands brush against wet moss and cold bark. Everything tastes damp, metallic, alive. The silent howl throbs in rhythm with my pulse. A branch quivers above me. Leaves flutter without wind. I glimpse a figure in the fog, shapeless, fleeting, watching. I move toward it. It vanishes before I can focus. Only silence remains. Heavier now, I realize I cannot escape the gaze. It is everywhere, in shadows, in fog, in the tension that coils around my chest and throat. I breathe shallowly, careful not to inhale too deeply. The forest waits. The fog coils. Shadows flare and vanish. The silent howl pulses, alive and patient. And I am alone, surrounded, aware that I take one final step forward. The mist curls around me, cold and purposeful. Eyes unseen trace me. The howl resonates through everything. And I realize the forest does not just watch. It knows me that I step into the fog. It moves with intent. It breathes. And I follow, chest tight, ears ringing, utterly alone. The forest is quiet. Thick fog curls along the roots, clinging to ankles, brushing skin like wet silk. Moonlight glances weakly through the branches, pale and trembling. Shadows gather. They stretch and twist across the undergrowth. At first, nothing recognizable. Then shapes form. Faces I know. Figures I recognize. Standing just beyond reach. I blink. They shift closer, closer, impossibly close. Then vanish. Empty shadows remain, static and hungry. A cold wind brushes my cheek. It carries a whisper, a breath of familiarity. It speaks in tones I cannot place, like a memory distorted. The damper smells stronger, moss and decay, and the metallic tang of something ancient. I step forward. Branches scrape my arms, wet and sharp. Leaves rustle with no wind. The figures remain motionless, just beyond the edge of vision. I feel their gaze, patient, waiting. Blink again. They move, ever so slightly, close in the distance. Another blink, gone. I shiver. The fog coils around my legs, cold and purposeful. It hums beneath the soles of my feet, like breath from below. I question what is real. Am I walking among ghosts, or has the forest changed me? The air tastes damp and bitter, filling my lungs with unease. Each step echoes softly, a reminder of isolation. The shadows shift. A familiar laugh, warped and hollow, brushes the edges of hearing. Not sound exactly. A vibration through the chest, a hum in the ears. My heart quickens. I want to run, yet the fog presses closer, trailing my path, closing options. I feel fingers of wind trace my spine. Soft, intimate, unnatural. Each gust carries the echo of someone I knew, someone I lost. I can almost hear them speaking my name. Not loud, just enough to make the hair rise. Blink, the figures vanish. Silence stretches taut, thick with expectation. I am alone, but not alone. Every sense strained, every shadow alive. Rustling among the branches above. Twigs snap under unseen weight. Shadows bend with impossible intent, stretching toward me, recoiling, always just beyond my grasp. The The fog rises. It coils into shapes, serpentine and deliberate. I step back, wet leaves squishing beneath boots. My pulse thunders, reverberating through the quiet, echoing in the hollow spaces between the trees. Another blink. A familiar face emerges from darkness. Eyes glinting, expression unplaceable, closer than before. Then gone. I question the forest itself. Where does it end, and where does I begin? Breath is visible now, mist curling from my lips. The air tastes metallic, like blood and old earth. The shadows pulse, almost breathing in tandem. I move slowly, each step deliberate. The fog coils around roots and trunks, brushing my legs like hands. I hear whispers, too faint to catch, yet insistent, calling my name, shaping themselves into voices I know. Blink, empty fog, cold, silence, and still I feel eyes, watching, patient, judging, waiting. I realize the forest is no longer background. It has intent. It has memory. It remembers faces, footsteps, breaths. It folds them into shadow, mist, and root. I take one final step. The shapes retreat. The fog curls around me, attentive, alive. The shadows linger. Just at the edge of light, the forest exhales. And I am left to move forward, unsure where I end and the watching begins. The fog is thick, unbroken. It clings to every branch, every root, every damp sleeve of my jacket. The night presses in, heavy and cold. I strike a match. A small flame bursts to life, pale and trembling. It casts a pool of warmth in the endless gray. The scent of smoke is sharp, acrid, grounding. Shapes flicker just beyond the firelight. Movement caught in the corner of my vision. They are neither animal nor human. A shadow stretches, dissolves, reforms elsewhere. I hold my breath. The air tastes metallic, thick with fog and anticipation. A low hum vibrates through my chest. It is static, persistent, alive. I feel in my bones, under my nails, in the hollow of my skull. The fire wavers. Shadows twist. They point in directions the eye cannot follow. I lean closer to the warmth. The smell of wet earth rises with the smoke. Soft crackles leap from the flames, each pop echoing like a whisper. The fog drifts inward, curling around my legs, almost protective, almost curious. Something is watching from the edges. The shapes are patient, waiting. The shadows elongate, reaching for something unseen beyond the flame. Each flicker seems deliberate, choreographed. I want to look away, but my eyes stay fixed. The forest that led me here, I realize this without surprise. There's intent in every step, every rustled leaf, every pulse of fog. I do not know why. I do not know for whom. A sudden snap, a branch under no weight. I startle. The shadows shiver with the firelight. Shapes bend toward me, then recoil, folding into the mist. The static hum rises, a vibration in the chest and throat. I can feel it echoing through the ground, up through the soles of my boots. The firelight stretches across trunks and roots. Shadows point, always pointing, somewhere unseen. I try to follow, but the fog swallows a direction, twisting the world around me. The warmth of the flame contrasts the cold by the fog. Breath curls visibly in the light. Every inhale tastes like iron, old soil, and smoke. My hands hover near the fire, but I do not touch it, afraid to break its fragile hold. The forest hums in rhythm with my pulse. I step forward, hesitant. The ground is soft, damp. Leaves stick to my boots, clinging as if resisting movement. Shadows bend again. The shapes flicker at the fire's edge. Sometimes familiar, sometimes not. I feel eyes upon me, always unseen. The hum grows. The fog coils higher, curling around the trunks. Around me, alive with attention. I kneel near the flame. The warmth is meager, a small comfort in the vast, shivering gray. I realize that the forest has no mercy. It guides, it waits, it watches. The purpose is not mine to know. Smoke drifts upward, dissolving into the fog. Shapes disappear into the mist, leaving empty space and the echo of intent. I sense presence all around, not singular, but many. The shadows point. I do not move. I feel my pulse quicken. The hum vibrates beneath my feet. I close my eyes for a moment. When I open them, the fire flickers. A single shape pauses, watching. Then it merges with the fog, leaving nothing but air and cold. I am alone, yet I am not. The fire burns low. Shadows lean and the fog waits. The forest led me here. I understand only that this is the end of a path. The purpose remains hidden. I stare into the last of the firelight. It is fragile. It is fleeting. Everything else is fog, shadow, and hum. I do not move. I only breathe, and the forest waits. The forest holds its breath. Even the wind has ceased. Leaves hang motionless, heavy with damp. The fog is thin here, brushing my skin like cold fingers. I stop. The stillness presses in. Every step I take feels amplified. Twigs crunch quietly beneath boots that should not sound so loud. At the tree line, pale eyes appear, unblinking, patient. They pierce through the fog, through shadows, through me. I hear nothing. Only my own pulse thrumming, uneven, loud in the quiet. A shiver crawls up my spine, trailing goosebumps across my arms. The damper smells strong, like roots in decay, sharp in the air. I move forward, though slowly. The eyes remain. I feel them watching every inch, every hesitation. They are countless, though hidden. The weight of them presses down, subtle but unrelenting. A puddle forms in the dirt ahead. I kneel to look, and my reflection stares back, eyes wide. Unfamiliar, yet mine. The fog dances in the shallow water, rippling across my face. I notice the way the eyes shimmer, almost aware, almost alive. I breathe in. The air is cold, metallic, tasting of soil and something older, lingering beneath the surface. My hands hover above the puddle, fingers tense. Every surface seems to watch. Every shadow hums with presence. I let my gaze drift beyond the water. Shadows cling to every trunk, twisting subtly, impossibly. Branches brush against one another, though no wind stirs. A soft static hum resonates in the silence, felt more than heard. I want to move, but my legs feel heavier than earth. The forest is patient. It waits, and I realize I have no claim here, no right. I never should have entered. The eyes shift slightly, almost imperceptibly, still unblinking. Countless pairs, hiding behind bark and fog. I can sense them more than see them now, leaning, stretching, aware. The air vibrates faintly, a static thrum beneath my ribs. I kneel by the puddle again, compelled. The reflection's eyes widen further. It mirrors my fear, my hesitation, my surrender. Ripples distort the features, forming angles my face cannot hold. I look into those eyes long enough to feel the forest settle around me. A soft rustling rises from unseen depths. It is not wind. It is movement beneath the fog, a careful, deliberate stirring. I smell damp moss and something older, earthy and unyielding, something that has been here longer than the fog, the trees, even the silence. Acceptance drifts over me, slow as smoke. I cannot fight it. This forest is not mine. It never was. I was always a visitor. The eyes remain, unblinking, watching, calculating. I take a final breath of the cold, metallic air. It fills my lungs and hums in my chest, steady, heavy. I step back. The puddle trembles slightly, distorting my reflection one last time. Shadows bend toward the edges of vision, and the fog curls with intent. I do not look back. The forest is patient. The silence watches with 1,000 pale eyes. And I walk away knowing the truth. I will never belong here. I am alone, and yet surrounded. The wind stirs only slightly, a whisper that touches my cheek. A reminder that I am being observed, that the forest remembers. I take another slow breath, cold, metallic, ancient, and I leave, carrying only the weight of watching eyes in the silence.